You know, when something good happens, something bad happens to balance it out.
The shoe's gonna drop.
And it's stupid. I remember.
Yeah, no pain, no pain, no gain. Hard work, struggle and suffer. So if you did anything, if you have anything positive without suffering, it's going to collapse in on itself like a house of cards because it's only solid and reliable if you've suffered.
Right. Oh, if you work for it. And nobody, you know, it took me 30-something years to realize there's a difference between work and toil.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the paradigm shifts I've been going through recently was realizing that everything that I do is work. And of course I'm working for it. I'm working for whatever it is that I have in every moment. If I go out, you know, every time I leave my front door, I'm working. Every time I talk to somebody, I'm working.
In physics terminology, yes, you are extending, you are working.
Right. So,
or if you put work in the toil context, which most people do, there's the old quote of, if you make what you love doing your career, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
Because, I mean, that doesn't mean you're not going to be doing a lot. You're going to be totally physically, mentally, actively doing all the stuff that people define as work, but there's going to be no suffering involved.
I mean,
that's been your journey.
That's been my journey. I mean, when I first met Katharina, she told me that her business goal was to get paid for being herself, and I said, "You're stupid. That's not possible. You have to pretend to be somebody else to get paid." Yeah, and you know, I realized that as I've started my own projects that I'm passionate about, I work on them 60 to 80 hours a week.
You know,
and I love them.
Once you guys get, like, you know, it's a journey over time, but once you guys get uber awesome results with your YouTube channel and, you know, a bunch of money starts coming in from that, it'll show you, oh yeah, being myself, I can actually make that my career and get paid for that. That's not just some bullshit thing that Katharina pulled out of her ass one day because she smoked too much weed or whatever it was that you were thinking about it at the time.
Right. It's so true. And also to realize that when you start getting paid for this stuff, it is because of all the work that you did at the beginning. I've been working on my YouTube channel for about 2 hours, sitting on the couch, and you know what? I'm not going to receive a paycheck for it today or on Friday. I'll receive a paycheck for it for the rest of my life.
You know, most businesses that people sink like 50 grand into to, you know, to start up, like storefront businesses or whatever, like they usually don't make $1 for 7 years on average.
Exactly.
And so it's like with something like YouTube, it's like you're paying nothing but time and effort. No, you don't have to drop 50 grand on a major risk. And I think that makes YouTube like one of the most triggering things. Like if you recall, you know, way back in the day, I think Paul, I think you were on this call too. You may or may not have been. I'm trying to remember, but do you remember the hangout called How to Fail at Making Money on YouTube?
Yeah, I think I was on that one.
Yeah. I wasn't 100% sure. I have to check back, but yeah, that definitely. And the whole premise around that is people get super ultra triggered about YouTube because it's a complete violation of their comfort zone. Like, wait a minute, I can just go on there and be myself and make money. So then they sabotage themselves and go, oh, well, I can't, you know, plant the tree seed today and have the 40-foot tree tomorrow, so I shouldn't even bother, like as if that's a requirement. Like, oh, I should be able to be on there for 1 or 2 days and have it rain thousands of dollars. If I can't do that, well, fuck it. I'm just not good enough to use YouTube. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving. I'm stupid. I'm not going to be able to make that work. So fuck it. I shouldn't even try. That's a story they tell themselves. The real thing is they are afraid of their success. They're afraid of being contradicted. Like, oh my God, if I just go on there and I'm just being me and like I start to build a nice demographic over a few years and I start getting paid for this, that's going to totally contradict what I think reality is. And I'm going to feel like I'm walking around in an alien world where I don't know the physics and I'm totally out of my comfort zone and woe is me. So that's pretty much the main thing that freaks people about stuff like YouTube, and why they stay away from doing anything with it, because it blows away most of their excuses. The excuses that they tell themselves: I don't look good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I don't speak well enough, I'm not artistic enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, and it expands through everything in their lives that they used to keep themselves beat down. So like if they see that they could do decently on YouTube and all they've done is just be themselves, that blows away 98% of the excuses that they tell themselves on a daily basis to keep themselves in their comfort zone of misery and self-loathing.
Which really is most people's comfort zone. And when you want to
Sadly.
get them even a little bit outside of that's where this abundance shot comes in, because you invite somebody to loathe themselves a little bit less, and they get angry about that. People will fight for their they'll fight for limitations.
Yeah, people are so addicted to the wishing and the wanting and the hoping and the imagining of, oh wow, wouldn't it be cool if that were this? And they're so addicted to that because they know that they can remain in their comfort zone of misery and enjoy those feelings of imagining potentials, because as long as they're not actually really literally living them, then they're still, snuggled up safe in the blankie of their comfort zone while imagining all this other stuff. I think that's another reason why a lot of people like sci-fi and fantasy. Now, my reason for enjoying sci-fi and fantasy is just I think it's cool as fucking shit, and it would be awesome if it was real, and if it was real, I'd dive right into that in a second. But a lot of people like it so that they can feel the coolness and awesomeness of the imagined potentials while still remaining firmly rooted into their comfort zone of misery and suffering. So they use it as to take a quick break from their suffering, but in such a way that it's not a complete break. They're still nestled in the nest of their suffering, but they're not feeling the full-on profoundness because they're taking a little mental break and watching a TV show right now.
I mean, I used to do that with video games. Video games
exactly.
for me were a way of climbing up an artificial ladder, when the fact is that I wasn't doing anything that I actually wanted in my life. And it took me a long time. I had to put video games away for probably about 5 years while I developed a healthy relationship with what I actually want in my life.
Yeah.
And only recently have been re-exploring them, and in a much more healthy way.
Yeah, video games are really great for brain training. But it's brain training is like a hammer. You can bash someone's skull in, or build something constructive with it. So it's video games can be used to improve hand-eye coordination. They can be used to build neural networks for problem solving and strategy, and all sorts of productive uses that video games can be used for. But they can also be used as an escape mechanism. Kind of like drugs and like weed, for example. Like medically, weed cures most diseases. Weed is healthy. Weed is nutritious, and weed can actually overclock and open up those neural networks to lead to lots of productivity. But at the same time, if all you're doing is focusing that on sitting there going, that's cool, like Beavis and Butthead, then all you're doing is creating more neural networks that are geared around sitting there going, and when you've got enough of those formed, it forms what some people call being a permanent stoner. So that even when they're not high,
you don't know any of those in Hawaii.
Yeah, even when they're not high, they're still acting like they're high, because from all the times they've gotten high, and they had this overclocking of genius inside of them that they were focused on zoning out into nothing. They got really, really good at staring into space obliviously, going, dude, So they've got all those neural networks that are built up for that. So now even when they're not high, they've locked themselves into that pattern, because the weed overclocked efficient neural network development. And what kind of neural networks did they develop? You know.
Hey, this place a whole town of paella.
Oh, man.
And then we blame the tools because of our own unwillingness to take personal responsibility. Oh, food is evil. It made me fat. No, food is required to sustain your life. If you stopped eating indefinitely, you would fucking die. But that doesn't mean that you can't abuse food.
Totally.
People just don't want to take personal responsibility because that would exit them out of their comfort zone. If I can't see myself as a victim, I can't stay in my comfort zone of misery. And then what would I do?
So Dave, you're trying to tell me that you have no more paradigms to clear about this? You're totally transcended. You've totally gotten beyond all of
No
these.
fucking way. As a matter of fact, I said I am now facing the other side of the coin of that, and that most people avoid that other side of the coin. And in that avoidance, they end up becoming fake gurus and spiritual narcissists and, you know, all this other stuff. They go into this deep denial. It's like, you know, it's like the people that stick their toe in the water and assume they've gone for a swim. You know, it's just like, yeah, okay, so like, you know, you did the first part of it, you're on the second square on the game board, but then you're acting like there's no more game board.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like I said, a lot of people around me are facing that first square, that first side of the coin that I've already faced, but I'm there. That first side reflects the second side. Because it's a coin, it's two-sided, right? Technically three-sided if you want to imagine, you know, the border of the coin between the two sides, and this is the third dimension and all. But, you know, so it's like most people, you know, they face the first side and then they're like, oh, I'm done. It's like, yeah, no, fuck you. You're nowhere near close to done. It's like you took all those years to face that first side. Now everything you know about that first side is going to be there to help you in the next number of years of facing the second side, provided you don't avoid it and run from it. Right. Oh yeah, so I'm like in like the next part of that journey. It's like going deeper down the rabbit hole. You know, most people they just hang out around the border of the rabbit hole and think they've actually done something. You know, oh, I looked down. I saw Alice down there somewhere. All right, I'm done. I've you know, I've made my journey. It's like, no, you haven't. Yeah, and it's all about that comfort zone. We trick ourselves into thinking we become enlightened in order to go back to our old comfort zone while pretending we've transcended it. Oh, I watched a few quantum physics documentaries. I'm good. I'm master of all. It's like, yeah, right. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And just like people in the truth movement, you know, they have a few pieces of information like, oh, I know everything about the Illuminati, and if you disagree with me on anything, you're a government paid shill or a stupid sheep or whatever, so I'm going to just totally spit out venom and contempt at you, which is, you know, is what the elites want, divide and conquer, but I'm going to ignore the fact that I'm acting like a big, ginormous hypocrite asshat right now and act all smug and superior in order to put myself in denial about my inferiority complex that I'm overcompensating for with my superiority complex. I see a lot of that in the truth movement.
Yeah, that reminds me of the dude that was the hotel owner that Paul hung out with in Costa Rica, who was an Alex Jones all the time.
Yeah, Alex Jones he's right about a great many things, but he's also his own worst enemy at the same time. Because he's not realizing that you know, he is playing into the same divide and conquer tactics. He's you know, I mean, he's giving all the statistical data. That's all well and fine. There's, you know, this person behind this false flag, that false flag, whatever. But he doesn't go into like the whole, all right, the reason this minority of psychopaths has been able to run the world is because we have complacently let them, and we need to drop our differences with each other and, you know, work together and drop our addiction to feeling right and indignant and justified. And, oh, I'm the victim. Those naughty Illuminati are the problem. They're the blame. Oh, I'm the victim. They're the blame. You know, and it's just like, no. It's like, you know, the psychopaths who run the world are a symptom of the problem, not the cause. We have caused the problem in our own complacency because we want to stick in that comfort zone of misery, and we freak the fuck out when we exit it and we go into abundant shock. Like, you ever notice that every time the quote-unquote good guys score a major victory against the psychopathic elites, the truth movement collectively goes into abundant shock and starts acting like a bunch of dicks?
I have not noticed because I don't really hang out in those circles.
I travel through many different circles. But yeah, as soon as any sort of major victory is scored, it's like, you know, they start going into abundant shock and acting like pompous assholes with each other. And soon you start seeing everybody calling everybody out and accusing everybody else of being this, that, and whatever, because they're desperately trying to get back into that comfort zone of, oh, I'm completely repressed by the elites. You know, that's the comfort zone. So as soon as they step out of it for just a second, because some victory on some front was scored, it's just like, oh my God, I'm triggered. I have to pull myself back into full-blown victimization.
Madam, we're going to get through this show whether you like it or not.
Dark in the campus, hot as a wire, stealing the reverence, tantruming fire. Woman, you shun me, flip me the bed. Tell me it's tasty, my every word. Screaming at the crowd, hear every word and sound fun to you. Smells like she sounds, crunchy sewage mound. She's hungry like an SPW. Rattling swine, this golden wine, disagree with her is shame on you. Mouth is contempt, entitled help and she's hungry like an SPW. Stalking the lecture to a doctor to hide. She sits behind you, people watching what I do. Red eyes bleeding, pull up her license eyes. I feel the heater, hateful than this fight. Screaming at the crowd, her every word yells out, fuck you. Smells like she sounds, like she's sewage mouth. She's hungry like an SPW. Rattling swine, if it's holy wine, disagreeing with her is shame on you. Mouth is contempt, I don't know that she's hungry like an SPW.
We have an open panel and a Q&A session because we want an open idea. Oh, I'm a racist. There you go. That's a new one. Where'd you learn that one in Social Human Studies 101? Right next to the giant, I don't know, wild boar I couldn't see who said there's no such thing as fat chicks. Guess what? If you think they're orange, you are one, okay? Did he just make a fat joke? Yeah, I did. And no, it's okay, because I got some here, so screw you. I have a faggot pass and a fat pass today.
Screaming in the crowd, every word yells out, fuck you. Smells like she sounds, crunchy sewage mound. She's hungry like an SPW. Rattling swine, it's his holy wine. Disagreeing with her is shame on you. Mouth is contempt, entitled hell that she's hungry like an SPW.
On the morning of September 11, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York, while in Washington a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the budget analyst office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-TECH, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
failure of imagination.
Because
nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her. And her, and her, and him. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about
his head could be seen to move violently forward.
And
they took the babies out of the incubators.
And
mobile production facilities.
And
the rescue of Jessica Lynch.
If you have any questions about this story, you are a batshit paranoid tinfoil dog-abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and or freedom, happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, MSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission. Because ignorance is strength.
Hey, how you doing?
Yes, I've travelled across space to check on the progress of your species. Cool. Shall I take you to our leader? Your what? Our leader, the guy in charge. The guy in charge of what? Well, in charge of everything. You have one guy in charge of everything? No, he's in charge of government. What is government? Well, government makes the rules for us. It tells us what we can do and what we can't do. So is government really smart? They come up with wise rules for you to follow? Well, mostly. But some of its rules are really stupid. Do you disregard those rules? No, we have to follow the rules, even if they are stupid or we disagree with them. Government punishes anyone who disobeys the rules. So you are slaves to government? No, it's not like that at all. Government works for us, the people. It serves us. We're the boss. It tells you what to do, and it punishes you with violence if you disobey it, and yet you're its boss? Yeah. But there are some things government does that you don't like. Well, yeah, not everything government does is popular. Like spending on wars, for example. What is a war? It's when government basically spends the people's money on weapons and soldiers and then sends them over to the other side of the world to kill a bunch of people over there and destroy their country. I don't like it that government does this. Well, I can see why you might not like that. Have you humans reached the stage where you generally consider stealing, enslaving and killing each other to be bad things? Oh yeah, we know that. Don't steal, don't attack, don't assault. But you give money to government and they use it to kill people. Well, yeah. But government does good things with tax money as well. Why don't you stop paying for the things you don't like and only pay for the good things it does? No, we can't do that. You can't just decide to stop paying taxes because the rules say that everyone has to pay taxes. But the rules come from government though, don't they? Yeah. So government made a rule which says that everyone has to pay them money. So everyone pays taxes because if they didn't, government would punish them using violence? Well, yes, but most people don't mind paying taxes. Most people feel obligated to pay taxes and obey government laws because it's for the good of society. Society needs government, and that means we all have to pay taxes. So just to make sure I've got this straight, government makes the rules and you feel obligated to follow the rules, even the ones you don't like, and it tells you what to do and threatens to punish you if you don't do what it says, and it uses some of the money that it's taken from you using threats of violence to pay for things you don't like and actually think are immoral, like mass murder. Yeah, but we can ask it to please tell us to do smart things, and please don't take our money and use it to kill people. We're allowed to ask them to tell us to do what we want them to tell us to do. Are you guys just scared of this thing? Is government some huge monster that can just squish you at any moment if you disobey? No, government isn't a monster. Well, what is it then? Could you draw me a picture of it? Government isn't really the sort of thing you can draw a picture of. Maybe you could take me to it. Where is government? You mean the building? Government is a building. No, but the politicians who make up the government have buildings they work from. So government is a group of these politicians? Yeah. Okay, so what species are these politicians? Well, they're human. Like you? Yeah. So politicians are humans and they're government. You're a human, but you're not government.
No.
So it's the politicians, they're the ones that boss the rest of you around and make you do things you don't want to do and take your money using threats of violence. But even though you're all humans, you're not allowed to boss them around and take their money?
No, they'd put us in a cage if we did that. But look, it's not like the politicians can just do whatever they want. Like, a politician can't just come up to me on the street and make me give him money. They can't do that. Politicians can only do things like that in their job, when they're working for government.
Oh, so politicians aren't government, they just work for government.
Yeah.
Okay, so government isn't a monster, and it isn't a building, and it's not politicians, it's something else. And it employs politicians, who are just regular humans, who get to order everyone else around and take their money. How does a regular human become a politician?
Well, that's the great thing about our government. It's a democracy, and that means that the people actually have the power, because we get to decide who among us get to be the politicians. We get to vote. And if a politician starts doing things we don't like, we can just replace him with someone else at the next election.
So the people that get chosen to be politicians only get to boss people around and take their money for a short time, and then they go back to being regular humans?
Exactly.
That sounds like a powerful position to be in. But if you get to choose who does that, I assume that politicians are always the wisest, most honest, caring and respected people among you.
Well, no, not really. I wouldn't say politicians are known for being honest, or wise, or caring. And they're certainly not the most respected people among us. Come to think of it, most politicians are lying, power-hungry crooks.
The ones you chose?
Yeah, they're always doing things we don't like. They use taxpayers' money to enrich themselves and their friends, and they never keep their promises to voters. They've been caught stealing and lying and taking bribes, and they mostly do what the big corporations want. Yeah, they're always doing stuff like that. They're completely corrupt. They're a bunch of lying crooks.
But you said that most humans know that stealing and beating each other up and killing are wrong. And you said that you have the power because you can change who's in charge. So why don't you just replace the lying, thieving, murderous, crooked politicians with some regular people?
Well, we don't try to elect lying crooks. It just always turns out that way. But we have to have a government because some humans are nasty and might kill or enslave or steal. Civilization just couldn't survive without government.
Let me get this straight. Because you're worried about the small number of nasty people that are willing to kill, enslave and steal, you think it's necessary for your survival to have a system where some humans among you, for a short while, get to call themselves the government, and they get to order everyone else around like slaves and, if they want, commit mass murder overseas, using money they stole using threats of violence. Politicians get to kill, enslave and steal, because if they didn't, someone else might? And you try to elect good, honest people to be politicians, but what happens every time is that the people you elect turn out to be corrupt, evil, lying crooks. That's your system.
Yeah, that's pretty much government.
Communist China under Mao Zedong, the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin, Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler, Throughout history, authoritarian regimes have inflicted oppression, extortion, enslavement, terrorism, torture, and murder upon innocent people. Many Americans firmly believe and confidently proclaim that such a thing could never happen in the United States. But is this just wishful thinking? Or is there something fundamentally different about the United States that renders it immune to the tyrannical oppression that has plagued every other major empire in history? The first step in analyzing the claim that it can't happen here is to identify and define what it is. Many people have an oversimplified, almost comic book type view of tyranny, an image of the obviously malicious dictator wringing his hands while cackling maniacally about ruling the world. In the real world, tyranny has always come about under the guise of defending the nation, protecting the people, and creating law and order. To gain power, a tyrant, at least to begin with, needs the support of the people. A successful tyrant cannot openly exhibit malice and lust for power, but must craft his message so as to convince the people that his intentions are noble, that he wants truth and justice to prevail, and that the way to make that happen is to give him power and control. Authoritarian regimes grow by exploiting people's fears, worries about economic troubles, crime, foreign invaders, and so on, and convincing the people that the solution is for a political leader to be given total control so he can protect the people from the evils of the world. This is always the template out of which tyranny grows. No matter how repressive or brutal a regime becomes, those in power will continue to claim good intentions, and will insist that extraordinary government powers are necessary to protect the people and to create justice and order. Throughout history, every time humanity has taken a step away from freedom and towards tyranny, it was done in the name of serving and protecting the nation and the people. But because every candidate, every political party, every regime claims to be for peace and freedom, for truth and justice, for protecting the innocent and defeating the wicked, how can the potential tyrants be recognized and kept out of power? Every tyrant claims to have noble motives, insists that the people should trust him, and promises to use his power for good. Finding the truth, therefore, requires one to look past a politician's words and to focus instead on his actions. There are several basic philosophical principles which tyrants always seek to undermine and destroy. In any country, determining whether these principles are being respected or violated indicates whether that country is headed towards tyranny, or is already there. Historically speaking, it is a relatively new concept to suggest that there are limits to what rulers may do to their people. The Magna Carta 800 years ago expressed the radical idea that even the king should be subject to certain restrictions. Subsequent English law and later the US Constitution specifically described certain things that those in power can never have the right to do. Several examples of this are found in the first 10 amendments to the US Constitution, collectively known as the Bill of Rights. This would include freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures, freedom from being forced to testify against oneself, the right to be armed, the right of an accused to a trial by a jury of his peers, and so on. The Bill of Rights did not claim to create any of these rights, but instead identified such rights as inherent to humanity, pre-existing and outranking all man-made authority of any kind. Rights that should never be violated, even if the majority supports such violations, and even if those in power claim that such violations are urgently necessary and are being done with the best of intentions. The authors of the Bill of Rights were well aware that once these principles are abandoned, the end result will always be unbridled tyranny. With that in mind, we will examine several of these fundamental principles to see where they have been respected and where they have been violated. The U.S. Constitution describes a very restricted, limited role for the federal government to play. The 9th and 10th Amendments, the last two in the Bill of Rights, declare not just that there are some things the federal government may not do, but that it may not do anything except for what is clearly and specifically authorized by the Constitution. Congress was not intended to have the power to control, regulate, or prohibit whatever it wished, but to have power only over certain specific matters. Such a concept cannot be found in the founding documents of the notorious tyrannies in history. On paper, this would seem to be a fundamental difference between the United States and many other regimes. But has that difference translated into reality? The federal law books today are full of thousands of pages of laws imposing taxation, regulation, and sometimes criminalization of matters which the Constitution never put under federal jurisdiction, including education, healthcare, food, retirement plans, caring for the poor, air travel, trains, cars, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, firearms, explosives, gambling, communications, employment practices, farming, wildlife, and all manner of production and manufacturing. In order to acquire and maintain power over such matters, politicians appointed judges to manufacture legal excuses for ignoring the constitutional limits on federal power. Of note, the Constitution itself does not say that the courts are the ultimate deciders of what is or is not constitutional. Nonetheless, shortly after the Constitution was written, the U.S. Supreme Court simply declared itself to be the ultimate judge of constitutionality. Since then, the federal courts have gradually whittled away at the concept of limited powers, fabricating justifications and rationalizations for violating the principle. One significant example occurred in 1942, when the Supreme Court ruled that Congress could regulate and control a farmer growing and consuming his own wheat on his own property under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Constitution. The outrageous rationale was that the farmer growing and consuming his own wheat, though such activity is neither interstate nor is it commerce, might have an indirect impact on interstate commerce, because if the farmer had not grown his own wheat, he might have purchased wheat elsewhere, which might have traveled through interstate commerce if he had. And so, with the obvious premeditated intention of drastically expanding federal power, the court simply manufactured a new legal excuse for putting nearly everyone and everything under federal control. Recently, the Supreme Court fabricated another new legal principle out of thin air to allow President Obama to force citizens to purchase private health insurance. As a result, Congress can now not only tax, regulate, control, and forbid anything it pleases, but can even force citizens to spend their own money on certain products or services, bringing to an end even the flimsiest facade of a federal government of limited powers. Both major political parties have enacted legislation far beyond anything the Constitution ever authorized, while continuing to appoint judges who will give their blessing to such actions. And this has often occurred with public approval, by people more interested in the promise of being protected and taken care of than they are in the fundamental principles of freedom. Ultimately, the American politician and the American voter have cooperated to completely destroy one of the primary checks against tyranny.
Ah, the government. It loves you and wants to keep you safe and well. It even wants to make paying taxes, fines, and court costs easier for you. How? Well, you'll need to meet your straw man. He was born the same day you were. He looks like you, has the same name, and lives in your house, but you never knew he existed. You will have even paid his parking tickets or taxes. The worst part? He's been dead from day one. From every birth certificate, a legal personality, or legal fiction, is created with the same name to confuse little old you into thinking it's you. So, there is a human you and a paper you, or as it's commonly known, a straw man. So when it seems like government officials, court clerks, or the police are speaking English, they aren't. They're speaking legalese, designed to make you agree to verbal and written contracts without even knowing about it, all spun from Black's Law Dictionary. For example, when the police say, "Do you understand?" you'll say, "Yes." What they are really saying is, "Do you stand under our authority?" Oops-a-daisy, you just created a verbal contract with them. Oh, you clever government. Did you know that whenever you register something, you are handing over title to the person you register it with? That's right. Whenever you register something with the government, they assume it belongs to them. Registered your car? Super! Now you are the registered keeper of your vehicle, and the government can crush it when you don't pay your, straw man's taxes. Expecting a new bundle of joy? Well then you need to register your little darling with a birth certificate. Then they can start the process all over again and create a new straw man for your little one. Isn't that great? So when Junior grows up, he'll be able to generate revenue just like you have. When you notify on your baby by signing the birth certificate, your child becomes a ward of state, and if the government doesn't like what you're doing, they'll assume it's okay to take the child away, or make new rules for things they don't like. Not enough school? Smacking your child? Shouting too loudly? Then it's off to social services for the little one. When you get a bill, it's sent to you, but belongs to your straw man, not you. That's why bills, fines, and summons start with Mr., Mrs., or Ms. Sometimes you'll see your surname in capitals, just like on a gravestone. That's because your straw man is dead, and just a silly piece of paper, created before you could comprehend or even consent to it. When you go to court, you represent your straw man, so you, the human, take on any costs, fees, taxes, and fines involved for the straw man. The human you doesn't even need to pay them. But you made a contract with the court by appearing on behalf of your legal personality or straw man, just like the government knew you would. Confused? Well, don't worry. The government doesn't want you to know anyway. If you knew, you'd stop paying things like council tax and parking tickets. Because when you go to court, you are representing your straw man. You are you, alive and made of flesh and blood. Your straw man, or legal personality, is a piece of paper created from your birth certificate. And you think it's you. What a silly Billy. Would you like to know more? Well then go over to tpuc.org. Get up, get informed, and get real.
The next obstacle to tyranny to examine is the concept of due process, which dictates that when the state intends to take someone's property or freedom, it may not do so arbitrarily, but may do so only by way of the legislative process, providing individuals with an opportunity to challenge the claims and actions of the government at an open and fair hearing before a neutral judge. And in criminal cases, the government may not punish people based on mere accusations or suspicions, but must provide evidence sufficient to convince a jury of his peers beyond a reasonable doubt that the accused has violated the law. While the Fifth Amendment mentions the right to due process, merely having such words on paper does not necessarily mean the principle will be adhered to in the real world. Indeed, similar concepts contained in the constitutions of Red China and the Soviet Union failed to stop those authoritarian regimes from murdering millions of human beings without charges or trial. The Constitution of the Weimar Republic, the government of Germany preceding Hitler's rise to power, was very thorough regarding the concept of due process, saying, quote, "The rights of the individual are inviolable."
You are watching a Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy Special Edition presentation designed for broadcasting on Conscious Consumer Network Independent TV. These special edition segments are meant to take the best of Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy, mixing and mashing the clips and redesigning them into a brand new derivative work for the purpose of both informing you and entertaining you. Each show will also air on the psecdocumentary YouTube channel 1 week after they are streamed on CCN. It is our intention to inspire others to view the negative as a positive opportunity for positive change, because without compassion in our actions, one is merely aware, but not necessarily awake. A platform of compassion and not falling for divide and conquer division tactics is the only way to bring in a new and better world that is not run by psychopaths. Speaking of psychopaths, we are here with Slick Willie, aka former President Bill Clinton. Mr. Clinton, has the rise of compassion within the human spirit caused any interference with your ability to rape women and molest children? And has this created any unforeseen phenomenon while you and your buddies worship that funky-looking stone owl during your cremation of care ceremonies at Bohemian Grove?
Well, Mr. Kelso, I tell you, this new conscious energy has been really hard on me and my wife Hillary. It's making it very, very difficult for me to do my presidential rape campaign. It's making it very difficult for me to keep it up anymore. I got to keep a line of Viagra constantly flowing into my veins to get it up. I can't even rape children like I used to. I've partaken in a lot of crazy shenanigans over the years, but 2017 has been one triggering year for me and the old pig. I mean, Hillary. My wife has become uglier and uglier and uglier. I have to put a bag over her head just to stick my slick in there. I'm afraid I might get diseased. After all, she's been on the campaign so long, she's starting to get AIDS or some sort of contraction of some sexual disease, that carpet munching pig. It just drives me nuts. My daughter, she's out banging more dicks than I know what to do with, including mine. My buddy Dick Cheney, we went out on a hunting trip, not a hunting accident. He has a tendency to have those every now and again out around the Bohemian Grove grounds, and these energies have been so harsh that the gun accidentally malfired and shot my dick off, and I had to get surgery done. It's now this robotic replacement now, and it sometimes has an electronic spasm and goes out of control, and I can't fucking stop it. It's like the Slick 5000, but as to the political stage, it's very confusing. Vladimir makes fun of me. He likes to leave uranium-encrusted dog shit on my porch, and he likes to harass me and make fun of me and laugh at me and tell me that I'm a loser, that I lost the election, and he calls me a little bitch boy. It really hurts my feelings, and I thought I was going to be able to rub it in his face. I was going to rub it in Putin's face. I'm really triggered. These energies are really triggered. It's not fair. It's not fair. My wife should have been the president, Madam President. I should have been the first man. I mean, the first bitch. I mean the first whore. I mean, the first man. I want to be screwing interns again. Not even a drip of Viagra on an IV can help me anymore. I can't. I'm just losing my mind. It's just getting crazy for me. I just can't do it. I feel like I'm going insane. Like my body's corroding and collapsing on me. I just can't do it. Now I'm on.
Oh my God, I think he's dead. Dave, I think you killed Clinton.
So much for a new world order, but based on what he was describing, sounds like maybe there's a bit of new world odor going on.
His corpse looks like a bag of odors and tricks. Yeesh. Gonna have to clean that shit up. Oh, and now it's leaking Viagra encrusted diarrhea all over my floor. I'm shit in educational comedy.
Situational comedy. Yeah, well, there you have it, folks. The rise of compassion is just taking those psychopaths and they're just becoming triggered little zombies that are just, yeah. Although don't worry, we'll be seeing Bill again. I'm sure they got a clone of him in the frozen locker, someplace, or so they say.
It's your heart and soul, it's your flesh and bones. Don't you let it go. You're the storm I find, bursting through my sky, taking all control. It's your heart and soul. It's your heart and soul. We'll be shining tonight. We'll be shining tonight. We'll be shining tonight.